Sadhguru, you have mentioned nature several times in your talk.
If you can hold the microphone like this, yes.
Yeah. You mentioned nature several times in your talk, and you were also saying that scientists say that the insects, they should be living. And scientists also say this is the age of Anthropocene, that man is overpowering the ecosystems and destroying the planet Earth. And so, what is your, how should, what is your opinion of that, and what do you say, how should human beings live in harmony with nature? How can we do that? Is there any truth to what the scientists say? Should we believe them totally, partially? And, just how can we live in harmony with nature? What is your advice?
I happen to be in an international ecological conference. Then I told them the only way that you can make a difference, you driving a Tesla is not going to change the world. Some satisfaction for you, but it's not going to change the world. This is a band-aid for cancer. If you really want to make a difference, the only thing is, you have to reduce the human footprint on the planet. Then they asked me, how do you reduce the human footprint? I said, you have to reduce the number of feet. There is no other way. Right now, we have disproportionately grown in our population to the rest of the life on this planet. We are trying to adjust to that. All that'll happen is, you're talking about curtailing human aspirations. It will never work, believe me. When I'm particularly in California region, I find these days anybody who's reasonably well-to-do must have a Tesla, because that's a statement. When you go to the office, you go in your Tesla, otherwise you're considered crass. But they have a 6-liter, 12-cylinder pickup truck or a SUV parked at home. They have a 12-cylinder Ferrari parked at home, which is well hidden. But when they go to the office, they will go in their Tesla. I'm saying you cannot contain human aspirations, but you can easily control human population. If you control human population, people can live whichever way they want and it'll not be a problem. You have made human populations explode simply because we took death into our hands to some extent. When we take death into our hands, should we not take life into our hands or birth into our hands? In 1947, the average life expectancy of an Indian was 28 years. Today it's around 64, 65, which is wonderful. The change has happened in the last 70 years. So when we are living longer, is it not important that we produce our children much later? Hello? I know today many families where 5 generations are alive at the same time. It's not good. I'm not saying old people should die, young people should come later, isn't it? Maximum 3 generations, okay. 5 generations living right now, that means 2 people have become 30 people. Where is the space, I'm asking? We're thinking of exporting them to Mars, but that's a long time away. Men can go to Mars, where will the women go? It's not hospitable. So, it's very, very important. We are talking about ecology like it's some other subject. No, it is just senseless living, that's our only subject. Now technologies have evolved, so many things are possible. You ask people to curtail their aspirations, believe me, it's not going to happen. People will pretend on the surface, still do what they have to do. You cannot curtail human aspiration, but very easily you can control human populations. But there are all kinds of religions, religious people encouraging have more children because their market is that. Miserable population means more religion will work. Yes, because they will promise you somewhere else there is a better place to live, you know. They're talking about a better place elsewhere. See, we must understand this. Like never before, human intellect is firing like never before. More human beings can think for themselves today than ever before in the history of humanity. One should start thinking, inevitably you have to think logically. Once you think logically, the problem is unless something is logically correct, you cannot swallow it. This is the nature of the human being of tomorrow. If you don't have the courage to reject certain things right now, believe me, your children will become like this. Even if God appears here and says something, if it doesn't make logical sense to them, they're going to reject it. Yes or no? So once this happens, heavens will collapse. Heavens are already crumbling in your minds. It will fully collapse in the next 25 to 30 years, believe me. After all, what is there in heaven? In Hindu heaven, food is very good. Nala himself cooks for you. If you are really a foodie, you must go to Hindu heaven. In another heaven, white-gowned ladies are floating around in the clouds. If you like that kind of ambience, you can go there. In another heaven, you will encounter virgin problems. If you like that, you can go there. But what is the qualification to go to heaven? This happened in Alabama. You know, you heard of Alabama? It's a very special state. It's a Sunday school, Sunday morning, the Sunday school teacher is going full on, full fire. The audience is not adults, they're tiny tots. That's where it starts. He was going full speed and then he asked in a bombastic way, "What do you have to do to go to heaven?" Little Mary stood up and said, "If I scrub the church floor every Sunday morning, I will go to heaven." Absolutely. Another little girl stood up and said, "If I share 50% of my pocket money with my less privileged friend, I will go to heaven." Correct. Another little boy stood up and said, "If I help those who are in need, I will go to heaven." Correct. Little Tommy in the back bench stood up and said, "You gotta die first." So, if you want to go to heaven, first thing is you got to die. If you die, whoever you may be, all right? Whoever you may be, however rich, however beautiful, whatever you think of yourself, we will either bury you or burn you or throw you to the birds, depending upon which culture you belong to. Because this body is something that we have borrowed from this planet, it's best to put it back. Yes? If you've not done anything eco-friendly in your life, believe me, you will do this one eco-friendly thing. If you feel you have not done anything useful in your life, believe me, this makes good manure. When people die around me, I always make sure they're buried under a tree. I see the next 2-3 months the tree is having a party. It just bursts out with joy. with more leaves, more flowers, more everything. So, you don't have to worry whether you will be useful or not, you will be useful someday, the question is only now. So anyway, you left your body here and went to heaven. So you're in heaven but you don't have a body, now what are you going to do with good food and virgins, I'm asking. I'm saying if you ask 3 questions, all the heavens will collapse. Yes or no? If you don't dare to ask, your children will ask. When heavens collapse, the human longing to experience something more will not go away. This is the way we have dealt with this longing. Human being is always longing to experience something more needs to happen. You may not be able to articulate what that something more is, but something more needs to happen. In pursuit of this something more, many destructive things, many wacky things, many crazy things are being done. But the important thing is, you want to somehow have a larger slice of life, yes or no? So the way we have conducted the humanity till now is, don't worry, you're miserable here, but when you go there, it'll all be great. But if heavens collapse, what will human beings do? The longing to experience something more is still there. They will do crazier and crazier things. One thing that will happen is, we will move towards chemical solutions in a big way. I'm sure people in Delhi, you know that you are moving towards chemical solutions in a big way. I was in New York City with a very large group of people, and I asked them, what percentage of people in New York City do you believe can sit in the evening peacefully without even a glass of wine? I'm considering wine as the smallest dose. Many people need many more things, but without a glass of wine, you can sit peacefully by yourself. How many? They have went into a debate and they came back and said, 5%. I was in London with a very prominent group of people. I asked them a similar question, what percentage of people in London could sit peacefully without even a glass of wine? They said, well below 1%. I think you're getting there too. See, I remember 35 years ago, in small towns in India, there would be 10-20 people who would be recognized as people who drink. People used to say, oh, they're drunkards, we shouldn't give our girls to their family because they're drunkards. Today, if you don't serve drink, nobody will come for your wedding. Yes or no? In a matter of 25-30 years, to be peaceful, we need chemical help. To be joyful, we need chemical help. To be ecstatic, for sure we need chemical help. But even to be healthful, we need chemical help. Pharmaceutical industry is outpacing the food industry, do you know this? Pharmaceutical industry is slightly over the food industry right now. Food industry is $7.6 trillion. Pharmaceutical industry is edging ahead of that. That means we need more medicine than food on this planet to stay healthy. One fundamental reason why individual human beings, societies and nations aspire for affluence is so that we have a choice of nourishment, and next thing is a choice of lifestyles. But countries which have an enormous choice of nourishment and lifestyles, for example, United States, 70% of the population is on prescription medication. The other 30%, of course, buying drugs off the street. This is simply because human longing to experience something more and heavens are collapsing. As you begin to think logically, heavens will collapse, but the longing to experience something more will not go. Unless we provide a logically correct, scientifically verifiable spiritual process where people find access to the source of their experience and they can create any experience that they wish within themselves, Unless this possibility is unfolded in the next 2 decades, if we don't do this, believe me, in another 50 years' time, 90% of the humanity will be on some kind of chemical for their daily sustenance. When this happens, as I said earlier, one fundamental responsibility that we have is we produce a better generation than who we are. We will fail in this fundamental responsibility. If all of us are on chemicals, the generation that we produce next will be much less than us. If we want to avoid this is what we need to do. A logically correct, scientifically verifiable spiritual process need to become an express need in the society, in every society. This is what needs to happen, and if we are really concerned about our children living well, just nurturing only our children well is not going to help. We need to create a society which is healthy, isn't it? You can't just make your children well and not be bothered about the rest unless we create an ecosystem of well-being. If there is no ecosystem of well-being, our children living well in future is just an empty dream. Let's make this happen. Thank you.